Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. So today we're going to be going over an interesting article from the New York Times. It says New York City faces a potential fiscal crisis as a $10 billion deficit looms. I'm going to try my best to not smirk while doing this video. It's going to be very hard, but I'll try. A persistent pandemic-driven downturn has caused revenue from business and personal income taxes to fall in New York City, while tourism and job losses have yet to recover. I'm sure that it's a pandemic-driven downturn and not a bad pandemic policy-driven downturn. New York City, battered by economic headwinds and mired in a stubborn pandemic-driven downturn, there's that thing again, pretending that the bad policy had nothing to do with it, afflicting employment, tourism, and tax revenue, is teetering on the brink of a severe budget crisis. For the first time in 6 years, city officials expect that business tax revenue will decline. Wonder why. Personal income and related tax revenue is expected to fall by 7.7%, the largest drop in a dozen years. And I look forward to joining that in 2023. And Wall Street struggles may require the city to fork over billions of dollars to its workers' pension funds to meet its obligation to provide guaranteed minimum returns. So this is something I haven't gone over with New York, but I did go over it with New Jersey in this video that I'll link down below for about an hour. The absolute TLDR of it is that the pension funds in New Jersey for the education system and in New York in general are completely fucked. Like, the only way that they're getting saved is either A, giant influx of new taxpayers, B, a miracle, C, the S&P 500 going up like 30 or 40% for a few years in a row. And since the S&P went down by about 20% this year, that's not happening. Continuing, the city's commercial office market is on the precipice of a potential work-from-home abyss. Again, in the beginning, they're talking about the pandemic-driven issue with the city's income taxes as if it was sustainable to begin with. And here they're talking about the commercial office market on the precipice of a work-from-home abyss, not a it was overpriced for 15 years already abyss. So one of the things I've gone over on this channel since 2019 is that a lot of real estate in New York City is empty. When I was looking for a new store, I was surprised at the amount of places in 2019 that were empty, that were still already empty when I went to check them out in 2011. That had been empty for 8 years that they never rented. And I've gone over why this is on this channel. This place over here is the size of my current store. This is $75,000 a month. This restaurant is about a similar size to my store, but it has outdoor dining and additional, like real outdoor dining, not that hut bullshit. And this place is about $40,000. So you have a lot of places in New York City, and I go over them in this little playlist over here that I'll also link down below, for places that are complete dilapidated dumps that look like garbage that go for $12,000 or $25,000. There's a reason that nobody's renting these places, and it's not just work from home that's doing it. This is, even if you get everybody back to work, they're not going to pay $75,000 a month for 2,200 square feet. The transit system's financial situation is so grim that the state comptroller has warned that the MTA may seek more financial support from the city. Now, when it comes to the MTA and public transportation, it doesn't matter how much money you give the MTA, they will manage to fuck it up. The MTA could fuck up a wet dream. I swear to... it doesn't matter how much money you give them, they will never make the L train work properly between Lorimer and Myrtle-Wyckoff, and then Myrtle-Wyckoff and Broadway Junction. It's been like 10 years that shit still breaks late at night from random times for no reason. And there's many reasons for that. Every now and then you may see that there's maybe 15 or 16 people in reflective vests that are working on the track. 1 or 2 of them are working, the other 14 aren't doing anything, and you have shit like this. A rail worker accused of overtime fraud made $461,000 in 1 year. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that blue-collar workers that help build the infrastructure that allows America to run should not make money. $461,000 overtime in a year? Really? There's a lot of corruption and bullshit that happens, and there's a lot of inefficiency. It doesn't matter how much money you give the MTA, they will always fuck it up, and the trains will always break and not show up when they should. It's just, it's something that you fundamentally can't fix. And while the nation has regained the jobs it lost during the pandemic, New York City is still 162,000 jobs short. With the situation especially dire for black New Yorkers, whose unemployment rate of more than 10% remains nearly 3 times the national average. Mayor Eric Adams entered office in January as the nation's largest city faced one of the most challenging periods. The coronavirus pandemic caused tourism and some tax revenues to plunge. It's the policy. While violent crime and unemployment rose. Yes, one of the things that we showed over here was there was a guy that was breaking every single window on every single car on the block. And Steve took his stick. So one of the things I love about the employees in my store, one of the things that I am humbled and honored and grateful to have such great people working with me, is that when their boss decides to follow a crazy person down the road that has a stick, my staff is actually crazy enough to follow me and then take the dude's stick, which is really cool. I'll link that down below. Needless to say, there have been people, some of the criminals have gotten a little bit more frisky over the past couple of years, and there's not a lot that has been done about it. But thanks to an extraordinary flood of federal aid, fiscal disaster was kept at bay, enabling the city to pass a record-breaking $101 billion budget in June. So they had one of the worst events in economic history, and they go from a 90-something billion dollar budget to a $101 billion budget. Only New York City could look at everything. You know what? 90 billion, 93 billion, that's not enough. Let's make it 101 billion as the economy's going to shit. Great idea. The fiscal buoyancy may soon give way. Last week, the Adams administration directed city agencies to cut their city-funded expenses by 3% this year and 4.75% the next. Even the police department, which is sometimes exempt from across-the-board belt-tightening, must cut its budget. The mayor sounded the need for fiscal conservatism in the face of a new class-size mandate from Albany that he says will cost at least $500 million a year. And pending the contract negotiations with the city's 300,000 workers, a growing population of asylum seekers stretching the city's shelter resources, and the potential pension shortfall. Overall, the city's revenue stream is projected to fall this year and next, the first two-year decline in audited state comptroller records, which date back to 1980. The state comptroller, Thomas P. DiNapoli, recently said the city faced a potential budget gap in 2026 of nearly $100 billion. Since I took office in January, we have made public safety and fiscal discipline hallmarks of our administration. That's why you have a budget that's billions of dollars more than it was a couple of years ago when the economy actually made some sense. Mr. Adams said in a statement, "We currently face a new cost that will increase the city's obligations by billions of dollars, including growing pension contributions, expiring labor contracts, and rising healthcare expenses. In response, we are asking every city agency to tighten its belt without laying off a single employee or reducing services." I want you to become stronger without ever going to the gym again and while eating at McDonald's every day. Yeah, great. I would also like money to grow on trees, and I would like for work to get done without me getting out of my chair. Yeah, nice fantasy world there. James Parrott, the director of economic and fiscal policy at the New School Center for New York City Affairs, said it seemed like the mayor was using the economic downturn to propose a really conservative budgeting approach at that point to dampen the expectations that many of the parties out there have for what to expect from the city budget for the next year or two. Which makes sense. New Yorkers have already felt the impact of diminished city services. The city is building fewer units of affordable housing than in years past. Emergency response times are up, and serious injuries resulting from jail violence have increased. Should the city be forced to cut billions of dollars in spending, it could lead to fewer garbage pickups, fewer protected bike lanes, and even fewer police officers on the street at a time when fears of rising crime are prevalent. Listen, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a politician. I'm just saying that maybe if your budget used to be like in the 90 billion area, and now it's in the $101 billion area, going back to around $100 billion, I should still be able to have trash pickup. Somewhere in there, you should be able to go through that fucking budget of $90 billion and be able to figure out how to pick up trash. I'm confident that there may just be a little bit of waste in there that you could cut without us noticing. The city has suffered far worse economic environments, most notably in 1975, when it recovered from the brink of bankruptcy after the state stripped the city of its fiduciary control and transferred it to the newly created oversight boards. Oh my God. Budget experts anticipate city agencies will grapple with some of these cost-cutting demands by eliminating unfilled job openings. Many of these jobs are open because droves of people have been leaving city government, and the city has struggled to find replacements. Oh, bro, trust me, I understand that you're struggling to find replacements. So in this video, I got a fine for something that I did that was not wrong. And when I asked the city if they could tell me how to obey their own law, this is what I got.
Online database, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I know. Listen, it's hard finding good staff. Trust me, I know. It is hard finding good staff. And one of the things is, if you're wondering why you're losing so much business tax revenue, if you're wondering why you're losing so much income tax revenue, it might be that the businesses that you treat like shit are deciding to leave. It might just be that when you treat businesses like shit, they decide to pick up their stuff and go where they're actually welcome. That might be one of the reasons, just one of the reasons, that you might be having a little bit less when it comes to the income. Another thing that may be causing, and again, just saying, maybe it has to do with the crime thing, maybe, just maybe, if you set the precedent that if a person who is defending himself, who is about in his 60s, against a violent felon in their 30s that's attacking them, maybe, just maybe, when you send the message that that person is going to get arrested and have $250,000 put on them in bail, it doesn't make people want to stay in your city. That might just cause them to say, you know what, I'm going to pick up my shit, leave, and go to a state where if somebody attacks me and I defend myself, I don't end up in the jail cell. As of this summer, the city government's overall job vacancy rate was 7.9%, roughly 5 times higher than in recent years, according to the most recent data from the Citizen Budget Commission. Nearly 25% of the jobs at the buildings department remain empty. That would explain a lot. You know, here's the thing. That would actually explain something. That would explain why when we walked over to one of these buildings over here, look at all the permits that we have over here. This is actually funny. It can take 6 months to 12 months sometimes to get a response on all of these different permits. And sometimes the funniest thing that can happen is the permits actually expire while you're waiting for other permits. You could have like permit A, you're waiting for permit C, you get permit C, and that one expires. You can't even see the window. You can't even see through the door of this place because it is literally covered in permits. They're never going to get to do their construction. And again, that may just be one of the many reasons that people decide to pick up their shit and try somewhere else. At the moment, there is only enough money set aside for 1.25% raises, a number that even the mayor acknowledges will not suffice. So you have people that do work for the city. They do not want to work for the city anymore for those wages. The problem is that if the taxpayers leave, there is not money to pay them, which means they will leave, which means there will be less city services. Less city services means the city will run less well, which means that more people will leave, and so on and so forth, and continuing ad nauseum. Now, there was one interesting comment here in the New York Times, one of the top voted ones. It says, "This is the inevitable result of the unsustainable budget and headcount increases during the de Blasio administration. Flush with Wall Street gains, he increased city headcount to over 300,000, handed out substantial raises with retroactive pay to the teachers union, payments for which came during the pandemic, and wasted billions of dollars on Thrive NYC and renewal schools. The yawning budget gap brought on by the pandemic was plugged with federal aid, and rather than set aside the money for a surplus, he committed the city to long-term fixed expenditures. He left Adams and all New Yorkers in untenable, painful, and avoidable situation. De Blasio's fiscal mismanagement is the cornerstone of his legacy." One of the top voted comments, and very true, and one of the reasons that I'm kind of happy to no longer live there. I don't see how you fix any of this, and I don't particularly care. None of the people that had sane solutions to these problems ever managed to make their way into office. None of the people that I voted for in the 15 years I've been legally registered to vote in New York City have ever won. And I don't live there anymore. And in 4 or 5 months, I will not have a business there anymore. And something that I'm really curious about is if the people who run New York City will ever have some sense of self-reflection. Like, do you think that they'll ask, "Hey, I noticed that last year you were a taxpayer, and this year you're not. I noticed last year you had a registered address in New York City, and now your business is registered in Tennessee, or Florida, or Wisconsin, or Texas, or Iowa. Why is that? Can you give us a hint? 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 Can you give us a hint?" Maybe at some point they will actually start asking, "Hey, why are you guys leaving?" Maybe they'll stop acting like the hot cheerleader or the head of the football team that always has a date lined up that he can treat like crap, and actually start acting like somebody that has to work to get a date, that has to work to keep people in their city. Nah, I don't think so. We'll see. Me personally, I've grown tired of it. I've grown tired of how people lying about the size of their real estate. I grow tired at the miserable permitting process if you want to get anything done. I get tired of the city licensing bodies not being able to tell me what their own rules are so that I can obey them. I get tired of the state's Department of Finance and the manner in which they deal with legal, honest paying taxpayers. And I've told all of my I got one foot out the door. I've told my employees we're moving in January or February. The first 5 or 6 people that want to come with me, I'll give you free rent for a year. I will happily work with you on raises or paths to raises, like moving expenses, helping you pay off debt. Like, let me know what I can do to convince you to come along. And I am happy to be starting fresh in a place that doesn't treat people like shit. And I really do wonder, I genuinely wonder, are they ever going to reflect on why it is that people are deciding that they want to leave? Are they ever going to reflect on why it is that people have had enough? I don't think so. I hope they do before it's too late, but I'm a bit of a pessimist. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. Hope you're having a lovely day. Also, one last thing I'd like to announce before finishing the video is I'd like to move my repair shop here between January to March of next year. However, before I get a full-service repair shop set up, I'd like to open up a space under the Fudo brand name. I'll leave a link down below to anybody who wants to know what that is. I would like to open up a little repair workshop kind of makerspace just type of thing where people can come in and bring their soldering projects, bring some of their electronics troubleshooting projects, and work with professional equipment, microscopes, hot air stations, soldering irons with good tips, and just people who can actually kind of help you with some of your projects or give you some advice on your micro soldering and stuff like that for free. So I used to do this only a couple of times a month, but now I'm going to be able to do work like that full time here in Texas. So there was this one guy that brought a radio, and he had ripped off a couple of pads and ripped off a bunch of chips. So we showed him how to run micro jumpers and everything to it. And after he had run the micro jumpers to it, we actually wound up with a working radio. So I'd love to be able to offer stuff like this to the community, and I hope to be able to have something like that open within the next 2.5 months. So I'm really hoping in 2.5 months I'll be able to offer this to the public here in Austin,
Texas.
You hear that?
He's talking about your car's extended warranty.
Hear the radio? That is cool. So So it would be really cool to be able to do that. And I hope to be able to offer that in the next few months so that people who are starting off and trying to learn electronics repair, instead of having to putz around by themselves until 3 or 4 in the morning, breaking stuff nonstop with no instruction, they'll have a place where they could come and actually kind of learn this stuff. I'm really excited to be doing that, and I am really excited about some of the ideas I have for what I want to do with the next phase of my life here, and I hope to involve all of you in the process. So there's a lot of really cool things that are going to be happening over the next 3 to 6 months, and I look forward to inviting you all in to be in on the process once I get this place opened and fully functional and operational. I'm really excited, and I'll see you all in the next video.